everyone knows, I head up our financial services team at TribalScale, and along with my colleagues, Kareen, Jaimin, and Tassim, we work with clients in the banking, insurance, wealth management, pension fund, and FinTech space to create digital experiences and to transform how they build software. So I'm going to introduce my co-panelists. I'm looking at a picture of myself that reminds me why I should respond to marketing's emails when they ask for a picture of myself. And first, we have Anna Foat, who is the Director of Digital Transformation at Sun Life. Anna acts as a practitioner and mentor of new ways of working and is also a design thinking instructor at the University of Western Ontario. As well, we have Michael Dellate, who is the VP of Internet and Mobile at Citi. He leads product development and strategy for internet and mobile channels. And prior to Citibank, Michael he had a startup in the e-commerce space. Amit Bhatia is the head of the Manulife Innovation Labs, the LOFTs there. He leads the LOFT team globally with locations in Canada, the United States, and Asia. Sorry, right side, I didn't mean to forget about you. Previously, Amit, he helped build Manulife's tech strategy team. And as well, we have Alex Nuth, who's the managing director at ATB Financial. She's currently working on an exciting strategic project for the bank that I'm not sure we can talk about. But before joining the bank, she was a business strategy consultant at Accenture. So if you'd all like to join me on stage. So just before we get started, I want to do a little bit of a level set in the room. Who here works for a financial institution? Woohoo! FinTech? Someone looking for a job? Candidates? Always good to know and identify. Okay. And who here is just lost? All right, there we go. Sheetal on the back. So before I sit down and we get into it, we really are in an exciting time for financial services and technology innovation specifically. As the keynotes kind of highlighted, it really is an interesting period of rapid disruption. And as we kind of enter and continue this low growth environment in developed economies, you're really going to start to see some changes in the way that people interact with their banking and insurance products. We have automation bifurcating, employee bases into people who can code and people who can care. We have growing consolidation, and it's kind of leading to us reaching a Coastian equilibrium in the workforce. And this cycle of bundling and unbundling is continuing to accelerate. And as Roger so evenly divided the room previously, I think here we're going to resolve that kind of Hegelian dialect about innovation that he manifested by dividing us into two through a casual conversation. So looking forward. And at the end, just so you know, we will hold time for questions, not statements or pitches, questions. And we'll hold about 7 minutes for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a couple topics, then we'll do a bit of a lightning round, and then we'll enter into questions. So, looking forward to having all of you. And if you have any questions that you're thinking about, please do write them down and we'll get to them later. Good to see everyone. Right side, left side. For the longest time, I guess, since I've been in this business, every client has always started their statement with the same thing to us. How do we deliver a millennial-friendly experience? So with that, trend kind of reaching its nadir, how do you think we can broaden the aperture and think about new customers differently and identify new opportunities? I guess we'll start, Michael, and anyone else want to chime in as well?
Sure. I think from a mobile perspective, besides just millennials, personally, I think it's focusing on what features and functionality that specific target group would be interested in. I know for our development process, that's what basically kind of helps define what we're thinking about doing and releasing to market in the near future. So I would say features and functionality.
Interesting.
I hate the whole millennial thing. We've decided not to ever use that anymore within our financial services company. So what we've kind of done is instead of working off demographics, really doing psychographic profiling for our customers. So we've got about 7 segments that we look at that represent kind of our entire customer base. And we're focused mostly, in the work I'm doing, mostly on the digital segments. We focus more about how they look at money, how they treat money, how they respond to money, as opposed to how old they are. And we find people within these segments, we can find people that are using Instagram when they're 60, or people that aren't on any social media when they're 18. So we've kind of gotten rid of the stereotypes and really tried to stay away from the millennial kind of language.
I would just build on that because I think we need to go back to building products that serve the needs of the customers that we're serving. And we've kind of lost the plot a little bit around having products and trying to shoehorn people into them, as opposed to building products to serve a need that clients have. Millennials and different groups have different needs. And I think, railing our fist and saying, those damn millennials are not investing their money is really the wrong approach. It's, this is the most risk-adverse generation since the Great Depression. And corporates have not figured out how to translate those anxieties, needs, and desires into a product that they're interested in buying. So the onus is on us to do that work.
So, you mentioned risk averse, and you talk about that in the insurance space. So, I wonder how that kind of the two meet with millennials. With people under the age of 35 not really buying life insurance products or traditional insurance products in the same way. How do those two kind of reconcile?
Well, if you aren't married, you don't own a home, and you don't have children, there's not natural triggers for you to buy the product that has been designed and sold for the last 20 or 30 years. So I think I look upon the problem differently and say, what are we going to do to serve the needs of those clients? And those triggers don't exist, so we need to go do the work.
So, just one last follow-up on this. Do you think that the average lifetime value of your customer is going to go down, or you're just going to charge them more for the limited amount of time that you have them?
I think thinking about the paradox of the problem differently is the way to create the product. And if you create the right product, the money will follow.
Okay.
I'll give an example of that. I think Anna said it very well, that I guess the old way of looking at what was segmenting based on age. So that's why you'd get the term millennials, right? And now when you're starting to understand the customer more, you can do some ethnographic research. You can get really into the details of how a customer behaves, or what are the situations that they're in, understanding more around, did they just have children? Do they have a large mortgage? Are they taking on more debt? And that helps us understand. And Manulife is in the insurance business, and as well as the wealth and asset management business globally. And in Canada, we have a bank too. So we look at things from several different angles. And one example I can talk about is we used to look at the insurance product as something you would sell up front and say, here's an insurance policy. You pay a premium every single year until you pass away, and then we pay a premium out, or a final dollar value of your premium package out to your family once you pass away. So it was a promise that you were holding on to. There was no interaction all the way through. But when we start to look at, there was zero interaction between us being the insurance company and our customers throughout anywhere in between the beginning and the very end. So what we introduced was a product called Manulife Vitality, which is in its infancy and is going to grow over time, which is introducing a wearable device in this. You sign up for a policy, you get a free wearable device, and now the point is we can save you 10, 15, maybe 20% of your premiums annually if you use this wearable device and you hit the goals that you set out to measure. So if you want to work out a little bit more, if you want to go for a walk, 15-minute walk 3 times a week, and you set your own goals, as you continue to do this more, we get to interact with you a lot more than ever before. So here's a new offering. So before, we were never in the business of making people live longer or feel healthier or live a more energetic lifestyle, but we were able to kind of look at how our customer segments were interacting with our products before and realizing there's a big gap here. And now it's not just collecting premiums, but it's like a protection product. And now we can actually grow the lifetime value of a customer if you start to introduce new valuable products by understanding them beyond just age, right? What you want to do, what situation you are with your family, and your goals around health, wellness, financial understanding too.
Yeah, it's all kind of interesting because when you think about it, where you're seeing the most success in financial innovation is areas in which the customer experience or user experience is so broken or so high friction that, and there's associated large revenue pools, that there's real opportunities for people to invest dramatically in innovation, And even like some low friction experiences like garbage day or recycling day are currently being innovated through mobile experiences from, some of the financial institutions here. So, prior to kind of getting up here, I was talking to some of our colleagues from CIBC. You guys in the room? Shout out the client. Okay. Yeah. We were talking about, mortgage renewals as a broken experience. So, is there anything that kind of immediately comes to mind for you guys and girls on the panel about customer touch points that are ripe for innovation?
I think flipping the model. I think that digital and the internet has allowed people to self-serve and create their own experiences. So this this idea that we're your corporate overlords and we will tell you how and when and why to do things doesn't resonate with anyone, regardless of their age. So I think people thinking about that differently and adding value as opposed to saying, this is the process and this is the way that it works. One of the young people on my team went to a design sprint around underwriting, and initially he was nervous. He said, I don't think I know enough to go. And I said, oh yeah, I'll get you set. And as I'm explaining kind of the process, he's like, it takes 60 to 90 days to get a physical contract in the mail? What? You're kidding. And I said, why is that surprising to you? And he said, because I was shocked that it took me 4 days to open my InvestTrade account. In 90 days, I just sent it back. And I said to him, it's great to hear you say that, because I think more people need to understand that the way that it used to be is not the way it's going to be in the future.
One of the things I'm really interested in getting disrupted is in that advice space. I think that's an area where, especially as financial institutions, we can kind of nerd out on what we want it to be, and like a lot of PFMs and a lot of advice on how you should be saving money. But what we found is a lot of people kind of already know that, and so they don't want to be reminded of the bad decisions that they already kind of know that they take. And so what we're trying to figure out is how can you use data and all of that to actually give people advice that they want, or help them be more of who they are, not turning them in who they should be or who the bank thinks that they should be, not pushing them into a life stage, not pushing them into products that we think you should be this gray-haired guy on a sailboat in the future. Not everyone has that version of success. And so I think digital gives us a lot more opportunities to kind of meet people where they are. And that's a little bit separated from technology and more just about the customer empathy. And I just don't think financial services do that very well right now.
Well, I mean, but advice requires trust, and when we think about levels of trust in societal institutions being at, I don't know, all-time lows, but definitely lows since we started tracking them. I'm sure they were lower when we were burning witches. That, it's interesting, and I think there's like a whole bunch of different ways to build trust. And so, Michael, I mean, I know you've used content really creatively to develop meaningful relationships with your customers. I mean, how does that kind of tie into the advice space?
I would say for Citi, we have two separate things. One's corporate and one's consumer. So on the corporate side, our target audience would be investors, media analysts, and then consumer would be people, obviously, who are looking to buy products. So we really leverage content on the corporate side to really grab people who might be interested in having a career at Citi or potentially recommend family to a Citi product.
Okay.
And I think taking that content and making sure that it's our identity on a corporate side, instead of it just being content that we might report, like our quarterly earnings or our annual report. I think diving a bit deeper and showing a little bit more of that branded content really helps with those conversions that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, kind of building on what you're saying and opening up a little bit more to the rest of the panel is, there is a popular perception of financial institutions as like vacuums for societal value. Anyone read Throwing Rocks at the Google Bus? Basically the premise is that, these large institutions, tech companies, banks, et cetera, are in the business of extracting value out of society, and using it to enrich their shareholders, versus small business on Main Street is seen as, providing a larger value to the economy. But economies don't run without systemic players like FIs and even FinTechs as well. So I think, with some of the initiatives I know that everyone kind of has underway, even using emerging technology, it really helps show the value and role that you play. And so, how are you guys thinking about expanding to really demonstrate that in that relationship that you can have with your customers?
I know for Citi, we actually redesigned our entire corporate website with that philosophy, where in the past we never really had a solid opportunity to funnel up and really highlight that great branded content. So really our entire redesign was influenced based off of that.
That's interesting.
I think for us at Sun Life, the Digital Health Solutions platform is a place where we have 3 million group members, and it provides an on-ramp to some of the startups doing really interesting work in health and wellness and providing them that audience. So it helps some of those companies scale, and from the customer point of view, we're not selling them anything. We're saying we believe that some of these solutions could help you live a better life, and we will expose you to it, and you as a customer decide what it is you want to do. And partnerships, because of our size, we're able to do diabetic monitoring and give people things for free in partnership with some of our partners. So that's an example of using scale for good.
Yeah, I would say in a very similar way, looking at across our businesses and saying, what type of customer do we have on one side, and how can we augment what we have in other businesses to really drive some more value for our customers? So on the insurance side, we've talked about some of the insurance products that we have in Manulife, but we also have in Canada, we have a group benefits business that allows you to get to physiotherapy practitioners, chiro type of practitioners, and we're doing some work internally that's under the radar right now, which is trying to see what other areas can we really drive that normal when you think of group benefits. These are some of the providers that you use, and under 20% of people who have these benefits actually use them. But when you think about what do people want today, right? Would you maybe in the room, if you use a chiro fairly often, put up your hand. Right? We're looking at under 5%. Massage therapy, put up your hand. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe 25%. If you'd be interested in having a house cleaner come to your house as part of your group benefits, once every 3 weeks, right? Right? If you would like to have a certain dollar fund of Uber transfers back and forth, so you have Uber credits that you can use on a daily basis, would you be interested? Put up your hand, right? So it's a lot more than some of the benefits we have today. So I think what we're trying to do is look at the benefit, the businesses that we operate in today, and say, how can we squeeze in some extra value for our customers? And still, it's important that still the same premiums and prices that we're paying today, but how can we find that way where there's an overlap, where there's something really interesting we can drive that doesn't hurt our shareholders and it doesn't hurt our customers, but it's an interesting kind of middle ground that we can find. That's where I think the true value will be unlocked now and in the next few years.
So we're going to jump into the lightning round. It's a format I stole from Tyler Cowen from George Mason University, and we're going to talk about some topics. You're going to let me know if you think they're overrated, underrated, or fairly rated, or you can pass. So an example of this would be Kanye West. Kanye plus Kid Cudi, overrated. Kanye on his own, underrated. Kanye and Pusha T, fairly rated. Yes, yes. Thank you. He agrees. Okay. So we'll start with an easy one. This one's for everyone in the crypto crew out there. Fiat currency, overrated, underrated, fairly rated, or pass?
Oh, it's.
You're regretting sitting next to me, aren't you? You've rested
Yeah.
on that and get some time to think about it. So why don't we start with?
There's
We can
still
start.
an empty seat.
Okay, yeah.
That I could change. I would say probably overrated.
I'm going to go with fairly.
Definitely overrated.
Definitely overrated.
Really? Okay. So we got a negative view on fiat currency across the panel. What about early stage, like seed stage venture capital investing?
Fairly rated.
Over.
I think underrated. I wish if more people understood some of the exits and possibilities.
Fairly rated.
Fairly rated? So, I mean, we'll start with you and work backwards and give Michael a break here. Partnering with startups.
Underrated, for sure. 100%.
Absolutely, 100% underrated.
Yeah, underrated.
Agreed.
I mean,
I
okay.
think that's
well
a
then,
call, right? That's a call for any startups in here.
Yeah.
There's 4 interested people here on the panel
Absolutely.
for discussions.
Well, there may be another interesting leading indicator for the startups in the room. Crushing startups with your massive scale and balance sheets. Overrated, underrated, fairly rated, pass?
Underrated?
Yeah.
It's something that we are very careful about, any of the startups that we work in, because scale can really crush you and all the policies. But this is a lightning round, so I should stop.
No. I think it's a question people are curious about.
I think, agree, but not just the balance sheet. The processes and the time is more crushing than the balance sheet.
Yeah, underrated.
Yeah, I agree. Citi has a specific incubator program, which I think kind of helps solve a lot of those challenges, and we've seen some success with it. So,
I mean, are there other? I mean, that sounds interesting. Let's learn a little bit more about that, and then some other models people have seen to avoid kind of, crushing companies in red tape.
yeah, one great thing that Citi has is, as an employee, if you potentially have an idea, you're able to submit it to sort of like a Shark Tank, and it gets reviewed across a lot of different areas within the business, and then there's funding, and it really replicates exactly what that seed funding and startup process would be.
We've just worked really hard to change our processes with dealing with those companies. So we've got a completely separate risk process, a completely separate approval process, completely separate funding process. Everything is arm's length from the core business because we want to make sure that we're not going in there and asking questions that aren't relevant or saying no to things. So we work really hard on the proof of concept side and just really get things through the door really quickly.
I think our DHS business gets at the Digital Health Solutions Group because they work with so many startups, but I think generally corporate not understanding the tech deeply enough to have a conversation with a startup because they hear this buzzword and they go, blockchain, we're going to partner with this company and they're going to solve our data blockchain problem, Anna. And I'm like, that's not what they do for a living. Like, they don't do that. And they said, but they said those words. So helping people understand what some of these companies do for a living so that that partnership can be fruitful for both parties.
I see it in kind of 3 buckets. One is working with startups, established products, and potential customers and growing. We have partnership capabilities, and this could be large institutions and smaller ones that we partner with, and the last is internal ideas. I'd say on the first one, working with startups, it's very important to keep them at arm's length. Alex was talking a little bit about risk, compliance, legal, all these. For me, it's really finding champions in those areas to keep the right things at arm's length, but provide the value where legal can kind of go through a 1-2 day process and not through a 60-90 day process we need to go through. Otherwise, there's no chance the startup is going to crash and burn before we even get a chance to acquire it. So we have one that we've been working at really successfully, a two-person company we acquired about a year and a half ago, which has scaled now to a 40-person company, and that's shown success only because we've kept it really, really far away. On the capabilities, it's about finding this kind of middle ground, and in the internal, we're really trying to understand how do you get employees to give you potential ideas, and now we're expanding it to customers too. Customers and employees can both generate ideas, but it's about really pushing them out and failing fast and deciding which ones really can get to a solution. Because there's an abundance of ideas. 99.5% of ideas out there have potential to go out there, but it's really about the execution and how you can get it to market, and then how you pivot along the way to make it truly valuable.
So we're going to kick to the audience in about 2 minutes. So if you have something you're thinking about, start thinking about how to structure it as a question versus a statement. And we're going to turn to you and look to everyone here. I have some backup questions in case you let me down. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit more about emerging technologies and the roles that they play in your roadmap. With technology change and new things coming along, almost every day, and some of them flashing out even quicker. I remember about a year and a half ago, we lost budget on a really cool project because it got reallocated to Pokemon Go.
That's gotta hurt.
It did. Yeah. My wife and I, we went hungry for a week. So I mean, how do you guys think about it? Or how does everyone on the panel think about it? Sorry, in terms of, do you allocate slush funds, or you just know that you're going to be late to the party? I mean, understanding the traditional yearly, quarterly planning cycle. How do you make room for emerging technology? Alex, we'll start with you. And then
Sure. So we try not to actually go too far on the technology side again. We go much more on the customer problem side. So even in my venture's a little separated, but even in our corporate kind of entity, we're allocating all of our backlog based on customer problems, not on the specific tech associated. I think that's a really important thing, because then you can find the right technologies to fit those customer problems, and you're always prioritizing that ROI versus saying blockchain or Bitcoin, or going after the sexy tech that might not have a real business value at the end of the day. And what we found too in talking to consumers, again, we get really excited when you work in the tech space and in financial services about what these things could be. But a lot of people on the street and the people that are actually going to be using this are really far behind. And so we try not to put too much in front of customers that they're not really ready for. One example is voice banking. We did test it. And a lot of consumers were kind of like, okay, you can do voice banking and that's great, but can you just get me a card in 24 hours? Or can you just get me access to my money, or like self-service fraud? Because those are the things that actually affect my day-to-day. Don't throw sexy technology at me that I'm really not going to use, or that doesn't fix actual pain points in my banking. So we really prioritize that way as opposed to really going after the emerging tech.
I would totally agree. I think that alignment between actual need. I don't think that customers expect that their financial services are bleeding edge, early adopters of a new tech. They trust us. You talked about trust earlier, Jared. They trust us. So I think with that trust comes probably more diligence and more testing. So I don't think the goal is to be the first. The goal is to use it in a way that's meaningful for clients.
Yeah, I would completely agree also. I think first and foremost is the customer problem. Now we've organized slightly differently. So we've set up in a way where we can look at emerging technologies and start to build capabilities around there, and some at an early stage level and some really deep capabilities. So in one example, voice is an area that we think is in its infancy today, kind of like mobile was in the early 2000s. And it wasn't until 2008, 2009 till, well, early 2000s, people will say, well, why do you need a smartphone to go on the internet? The screen is so small, you can hardly type on these funny keyboards. And so there was really no use for mobile at that time, mobile internet and banking. And towards the end of kind of 2008, 2009, penetration passed 50%. And now, today, it'd be weird if you did it if you had one of those Motorola flip phones that had no mobile capability on it, right? So we see voice in a very similar lens where it's in its infancy right now, but we believe it's going to ramp up a lot faster than mobile did. It won't take 8-9 years. It's probably going to be about 5. So I think the latest stat was about 20% penetration in the US where they have voice capabilities, and we're doubling down on the voice side because we think it's going to grow a lot. Today, people just use it for music and asking questions like sports scores, weather, and their calendar, if they can connect their calendar. Not really a good use case for any of our companies up here, but what we believe in somewhere between, or I strongly believe, somewhere between 2 to 5 years, people are going to ask their digital assistants a lot of very complex questions, and the leading companies are the ones going to have the artificial intelligence to absorb the words and the phrases that customers use and translate that into a customer experience that works really well. So today we've launched a voice product that says, Manulife, can you tell me how much massage balance I have in my account? You have $200 left before December. Sure, you can access that on your mobile, you can go online. It's not really a great use case, but in 2 to 3 or 5 years, we want to be able to sell life insurance through there and say, I'm going skiing for the weekend. Can I add another $1 million to my policy just in case? And the voice assistant says, yes, have all your information, $20 extra for the weekend. Would you like to do it? It's like, yes, just in case. You never know what might happen, so, right? Today, that's not possible. You can't do a 90-day, get an application, and do some blood tests in that time period. So the possibilities of the future are going to grow based on the artificial intelligence that you build. And with voice, we think that's going to be one of the new channels that we really need to invest in while upgrading our mobile, our website, and probably up here on the panel, Manulifes are probably the worst out of everything up here. So we need to take a slightly different strategy where we can't be the leaders in that area. So we need to tackle some new technologies, but still get the rest of our technologies up to par at least.
So Michael, how about in terms of Citibank? We've seen some of the really cool new apps and new, non-client apps that have been released and the kind of traction they've gotten. Is there anything particular on the roadmap that is just worth sharing?
Yeah, sure. I could talk about, we have a Citi News app, so it's basically like the sister to Citigroup.com. It hasn't been redesigned in quite some time, so following the corporate website, we thought that there was a need to redesign it. But again, the background behind that was just taking a lot of this branded content that we have and funnel it into the redesign of the app and hopefully opening up a different target audience outside of just investors and media and analysts. We're hoping that that branded content will connect with people who might be interested in applying for jobs at Citi or potentially opening up products with Citi where that specific branded piece of content might resonate with them on a personal level. And we've seen success with that on the website, so it's natural to now pursue it in mobile.
I mean, speaking of content, when I look at this room, the one thing I just keep thinking is how many likes on Instagram of everyone doing the wave would get me. So I think it's just structured perfectly for that. So I'm going to open up my camera, get it on video. And okay, is everyone familiar with what the wave is? It is a method of showing your appreciation for a sporting team. Often done at sporting events, beginning from a sitting position, lifting your hands in the air, going to full standing, and then returning to seated, progressing vertically, or I guess horizontally, across a space. Any questions about what we're about to do? Now everyone is familiar, so there's no excuses if you don't participate. So we are going to start at the right, And then when I count down from 3, 3, 2, 1, go, not 3, 2, 1, wave, 3, 2, 1, go, wave. We are going to do a wave starting from your side on the right, continuing and swinging all the way to the left. I am going to videotape it and get more likes than I've ever gotten on a piece of content. So if you're all ready, you look like you are not with me one bit. We're going to try it and see who my true fans are. There we go. We got the Braze team over there, thumbs up. So, okay, beginning in 3, 2, 1, wave. Oh, that's some fire content.
Wow, well done.
Yeah! My 50 followers are going to go nuts. It's a private account, by the way, and I'm not going to share it with any of you. So thank you for that. And, I guess now is kind of question and answer time. Anyone in the audience have something for the panel? Gentleman in here up front.
You said that this is the most risk-averse. Oh, sorry. You said this is the most risk-averse generation ever, or lately.
Since the Depression.
Right, since the Depression. Why did you say that?
It's been very well studied. There's a lot of reasons that people, they've watched the meltdown of the financial crisis. They grew up in war. There's not been stable employment. There's a whole bunch of reasons why they lack the trust. You see Edelman keeps studying the trust barometer, and it keeps going down, down, down.
Oh, that's the question. What's the trust barometer?
The trust barometer is a tool that Edelman uses globally to assess people's confidence in world systems. And the millennial group cohort of folks, for a whole bunch of reasons of world history and just reasons of who they are in the world, really are risk adverse.
Yeah, and it also spans across several different industries, so it's quite interesting to take a look at.
And those chimes in the background, they're just like, dramatically talking about societal trust while this institution reminds us it's almost lunchtime. I guess it's fitting. Any other questions, please? Yes, on the right.
Good morning, thank you. I spend a lot of time between large corporate and new innovation companies, and one of the things that drives me crazy, and academia, is that the large corps aren't engaging and bringing in new innovation, but trying to build on their own. We could pick Manulife or ABT Financial, but how are you guys bringing in new innovation through organizations that are already in existence and building out technology today to make your businesses better?
Mm-hmm. We mostly partner. So we're a relatively small financial institution, and so we don't really have the ability to hire thousands of developers or to be spending millions and millions of dollars trying to do it ourselves. And we don't even think that we've got the right culture or skill set to really do it. So we primarily partner with other organizations because it gives us that acceleration that we just wouldn't have. And we know what we're good at, and it is a bit of balance sheet management. And we know what we're not good at, which is developing crazy new technologies and always thinking very differently. So we partner really, really strongly.
I don't know if you know our stat. It's funny you said that, but we are actually trying to hire thousands of developers internally. So we're taking a two-pronged approach. One is upskilling the talent that we have internally, and that's hiring 1,000 new developers who can build in new ways that we haven't been before. If you think about Manulife as a legacy insurance company, it's what a large set of our operations is today, and we need some of those operations, but to really deliver on the customer experiences that our customers need of the future, we need new talent, new skills, ability to generate and build on new technologies. So that's kind of one of the two-pronged approaches, is really upskilling the talent and making sure that we are skilled in the areas that are necessary. The second is around the partnerships, right, and creating programs. And now we're creating more formal programs where we are connected to ecosystems like yourselves, like some of the incubation hubs that we have in Singapore, in Boston, in Toronto. These are where some of my key labs are. but are present in some of the countries where there's really strong talent and plugged into the right ecosystem. So as we start with the customer problem first and say, okay, this is the problem that we have today, what are different ways that we can solve it, and we start to narrow down that problem statement into potential solutions, we can have teams that are continue to explore and monitor what's happening in that area. And if someone is out there who has great technology, we want to learn about it. And we don't just want to suck it up and acquire it right away, but we want to help foster it and build it. And there's a lot of founders in here. When you guys have ideas and you're looking for a company like Manulife or like any other companies up here to partner with, we want to help navigate your solution. And we're not just interested in buying what you have immediately, but we want to help grow it and make that pie a lot larger than it is. So if there are startups out there that are interested, we have the programs in its infancy right now, but as we're growing this program more, we'll be able to work with, we have kind of realms of hundreds to thousands of companies a year to be able to partner with. And this way we can understand what are the capabilities out there and how they can work very closely with our customers.
I'll just add, because I straddle those three worlds as well, I think it's incumbent upon every one of those parties to think about the other groups. So in academia, it can't just be theoretical. The rubber needs to hit the road for business, for startups, really to think about how to position what it is that they're doing in a way that a big company can consume it. And of course, I think we've all taken full responsibility for corporations acting in a way that is easy for startups to work with us and not making it more difficult. But I would say it's not just corporates that need to kind of morph a little bit. Startups can't expect that they're going to, pick up the phone and say, I have this amazing idea, I need to go speak to the CEO of Manulife, right? That's not how that works. And in academia, it's easy to say, here are the trends in 5 years, but absent what it actually means commercially, it's not interesting for business. So all three of those players need to see each other and figure out a way to come together.
That's great. So as we're kind of getting to a close, I just wanted to take a couple seconds to thank all of our sponsors for making this possible and all of our clients and everyone who's here and attended. I mean, it's pretty nerve-wracking being up here, I mean, I really appreciate, everyone extending their emotional energy to participate in this from our side, and all the friendly faces in the audience who gave me encouraging glances when I was looking to you for support and validations. Thank you for providing that. I think next we have a panel on product? Travel. Hopefully product in the travel space. It's going to be really exciting. So if you have great seats, don't get up. Look behind you. Everyone else is standing. So you got those premium real estate. But yeah, I think we're all going to be available. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to grab me or anyone else in the hall. We look forward to continuing the dialogues. Thanks so much for coming. Wait, before you leave, round of applause. Come on, we earned it.